What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. And guess what? Y'all already know who it is. It is me, your guy, the Young Brother of Soul. First and foremost, I hope everyone had a wonderful and safe Memorial weekend, because even though it rained, but still had a good time though. Didn't really eat as much barbecue like I wanted to, but that's okay. Still saw my family though, but yeah. So anyway, the NBA playoffs is still going on. You already know the Knicks, they advanced to the NBA finals. Yeah, they did. They are waiting on either the Spurs or the Thunder. Whoever wins the Western Conference, that will be your finals game. Yeah. And y'all already know, I'm sitting here patiently waiting on football season to come. You know I am. But we still have baseball season. You know, my hometown Philadelphia Phillies, they did fire their manager, Rob Thompson. But I have to say, since they fired him, they've been winning a lot of games lately. You know, I mean, they lost a couple games, don't get me wrong. Yeah, they did, but they've been winning a lot of games. Maybe that was the time we should have been got rid of him. I don't know. I'm just saying. But speaking of baseball, now this is going to be a very interesting episode of the Young Brother Soul podcast show. Yeah, it is. Like I said, we're going to be talking about baseball. And on this episode, what I'm going to be talking about is MLB teams that are cursed. Now, before I go on with the list of the MLB teams that are cursed, yeah, some of these curses may be or may have been lifted, which they have. But before we go on with, well, when the curses have been uplifted, I'm going to tell you what's been going on with teams before they uplifted their curse, as you should say. I also did an episode of NFL and NBA teams that are cursed. Yeah, I did. Make sure y'all go back and check them episodes out. So, like I said, some of these teams that are cursed, they've been cursed by either owners, managers, bad trades. This is going to be very, very, very interesting. Yes, it is. So, starting off the list with the MLB team that was cursed. The curse of the Bambino. Now, this curse is stated to the Boston Red Sox. Now, we all know, before Babe Ruth became a New York Yankee, he used to play for the Boston Red Sox. And believe it or not, he was a pitcher. A very good pitcher, too. Until he got tired of saying, oh, I'm not hitting enough. I want to hit more, which he was. Babe Ruth was a phenomenal baseball player. Now, before I go on with this curse, believe it or not, the Boston Red Sox were the first MLB team to win the World Series back in 1903. And not only that, they were the first team to become a dynasty, tying along with the Philadelphia Athletics. Well, not only that they would become the first MLB team to win a World Series back in 1903, they will also win it again in 1912, 1915, 1916, and 1918, which those last three, that Babe Ruth were a part of those three last World Series of the Boston Red Sox. Well, before 2004, I'm going to give you what happened. So, in 1920, the Boston Red Sox, believe it or not, traded Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was for $100,000, because at that time the Boston Red Sox, who the owner was more worried about his play, a net, whatever. And believe it or not, that play came out a few years after the Red Sox traded Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees. Now, believe it or not, 1918 will be the last time that the Red Sox won the World Series. And believe it or not, the Red Sox were not the same, and that was the beginning of a team dynasty of the New York Yankees. Well, we already know the New York Yankees won 27 World Series. Yeah, they won 27 World Series. But the Boston Red Sox will go on and have a championship drought of 86 years, ever since they traded Babe Ruth. Now, believe it or not, after 1918, the Red Sox actually made it to 4 World Series. But those 4 World Series, 1946, 1967, 1975, and 1986. All those 4 World Series that the Boston Red Sox have appeared after 1918, they were all lost. And not only that they were lost, well, they lost those 4 World Series, as I should say, correct myself. They would lose all those World Series in a Game 7. Yeah, in a Game 7. They lost twice to the St. Louis Cardinals in 1946 and 1967. They would lose Game 7 to the 1975 World Series against the Cincinnati Reds, and they will lose the 1986 World Series to the New York Mets. We already know what happened in that game. In Game 6, they would only have to have 1 out to win the World Series. Well, things didn't turn out that way. And in Game 7, Bill Buckner, well, we're going to talk about him a little later too. The ball rolled through his legs. The Mets would win Game 6, and the Mets would go on and win the World Series of 1986. And not only that, the Boston Red Sox definitely had some bad playoff moments. They were going to lose the ALCS quite a few times, and then of course they would lose to the Yankees quite a few times, because they're in the same division. And not only that, they lost the 1999 ALCS to the New York Yankees. And believe it or not, in one of those games, it was a very controversial moment. They're saying that one of the Boston players ran in second base. They said he was touched, but he wasn't. So if they would have had instant replay or challenging plays like they do today, the Red Sox would have definitely won that game. And then they will go on and meet the New York Yankees in the 2003 ALCS. Yeah, the Yankees would go on and win Game 7. Somebody hit a game-running home run, and the Yankees went on and played in the World Series. But that is until 2004. The Yankees gave it another shot as they would play the New York Yankees. Did I say Yankees? Oh my goodness. The Red Sox would do it again as they would play the New York Yankees in the ALCS. But they were down 3-0 in that ALCS. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, they will go on and force a Game 7, win Game 7, and they would advance to the World Series since 1986. And not only that, in 2004, they will go on and sweep the St. Louis Cardinals as they win their 2004 World Series, ending that 86-year championship drought. And not only that, ladies and gentlemen, they will go on and win the World Series 2007, 2013, as you already know, that was the first time in 95 years since Boston Red Sox fans saw the Red Sox win a World Series. And they will also win in 2018. So, was the curse of the Bambino real? I believe it was, but it has been uplifted, and the Boston Red Sox won 4 World Series after the curse of the Bambino has been lifted. Another team, or another famous curse of the MLB. Now, everybody definitely knows about this curse. This curse was a real one. And that curse is, ladies and gentlemen, the curse of the Billy Goat. Now, this curse, it goes to the Chicago Cubs. Now, believe it or not, the Chicago Cubs actually won 2 World Series before 2016, before we get there. They won in 1907 and 1908. But that would be the last time that the Chicago Cubs would win a World Series. Now, they did made it in 1906, which they lost to their crosstown rival Chicago White Sox, which we're going to talk about a little later. They would lose the 1910 World Series, 1918 World Series, 1929, 1932, 1935, 1938, and of course, before we get on to 1945, yeah, they won 2 World Series, 1907 and 1908. But was there a curse before the curse of the Billy Goat? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. I'm guessing that it was, but 1945 World Series. The Chicago Cubs played the Detroit Tigers in that World Series. And believe it or not, there was a bar owner by the name of William Sinise. I can't pronounce his last name. Correct me if I'm wrong. He would bring who was a bar owner, he would bring his pet goat to Wrigley Field. Now, a lot of fans were complaining that the goat was had a very bad smell, as I should say, and the goat was making a lot of noise. Well, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, they would kick him out of that game, out of that stadium, and he put a curse on the Cubs, stating that the Cubs will never play in the World Series for a very long time. And they were going to lose that 1945 World Series to the Detroit Tigers. And believe it or not, that was the last time that the Chicago Cubs played in a World Series since 1945. Now, this curse is so real because 1969, Shea Park, or should I say Shea Stadium, a black cat walked across the Cubs dugout. And believe it or not, the New York Mets were going to win that division, with a newly division, and they were going to win the 1969 World Series. Another situation that was a very bad situation. The Chicago Cubs played in the 1984 NLCS. Now, believe it or not, before 1984, they made the playoffs for the first time since 1945. Now, that tells you how that curse is real. And not only that, they had a 2-0 lead in the series until the San Diego Padres came back and won the series. In one of those games, Bill Buckner, before he went to the Boston Red Sox, the ball rolled through his legs, and yeah, what's up with Bill Buckner and the ball rolling through his legs? He did it with the Cubs and NLCS, and then he did it to the Boston Red Sox in the World Series against the New York Mets. Yeah, that is crazy. Yeah. And then we also have the 2003 NLCS with the infamous Steve Bartman catcher's interference. Now, to be honest with you, fans, yes, as a fan, if it's catchable for the players to catch, let the players catch the ball, please. But if it's uncatchable, okay, that's a different story. Well, they played the Florida Marlins. Well, they're the Miami Marlins, but then they were called the Florida Marlins. And the Florida Marlins would go on and win the series, and they would advance to the World Series. Now, believe it or not, a lot of fans of Chicago, they put death threats to Steve Bartman, all because of that catcher's interference. Well, they were up 3-0 in that game, but the Marlins came back, and they were forced a Game 7 and won Game 7. Yeah, that Steve Bartman situation, that was bad. That was bad. And then they were go on and lose a couple more playoffs games, but that is until 2016. Now, I actually predicted this, but they defeated the LA Dodgers in the NLCS, advancing to the World Series for the first time since 1945. And they were playing against the Cleveland, Guardians, but they were the Cleveland Indians during that time. And they were down 3-1. They were going and force a Game 7. Until this day, ladies and gentlemen, the 2016 World Series was the most viewed World Series, and it is still talked about to this day. The Cubs finally won another World Series after having a 108-year championship drought. I knew they were going to win, because the year before that they lost the NLCS to the Mets, and I'm like, yeah, they're gonna win. They're gonna win it this time, and they did. Yep. The curse of the Billy Goat has been lifted. Now, will the Chicago Cubs win another World Series? Who knows? But it finally been lifted, and the city of Chicago went crazy. Yeah. Another curse of the MLB that was well known. Now, this curse, ladies and gentlemen, was a very, very, very bad situation. And this curse is, ladies and gentlemen, the curse of the Black Sox. This curse was for the Chicago White Sox. What's up with Chicago, man? The Cubs were cursed. The White Sox, the Bears, the Bulls haven't won nothing since the 90s of Michael Jordan. And, of course, the Blackhawks they won 3 Stanley Cups. But, yeah. So, this curse goes back to the 1919 World Series. Now, in 1917, the Chicago White Sox won the World Series. Okay. They would be back in the World Series of 1919, facing against the Cincinnati Reds. Now, the Chicago White Sox were definitely favored to win the World Series. 2 years ago, they won it. They were a better team. They were stronger. But for some reason, a lot of players, 8 players, felt like they wasn't getting paid enough. Well, we already know baseball wasn't making that much money like they do now. So, they were getting a little tired. And somebody came out of nowhere and told those 8 players, Arnold Chick Gandil, Eddie Seacock, Oscar Happy Flesh, Shoeless Joe Jackson, Fred McMullen, Charles Swede, Riseberg, George Buck Weaver, and Claude Lefty Williams. They made an agreement to throw the World Series of 1919. It was fixed. It was rigged. They agreed to lose the World Series to take more money. in which they did. They lost to the 1919 Cincinnati Reds. And believe it or not, after game one, or after the World Series was over, a lot of people were being very superstitious, saying, what just happened? We were the better team. Yeah. Some reason it got leaked out, stating that those 8 players agreed to take more money. Gambling. Okay, yeah, players gamble. It's illegal, but I'm going to just leave it at that. Those 8 players that I just named, they were found guilty, and they will be banned from baseball forever. Lifetime ban. Now, believe it or not, that was the last time that the White Sox made it to the World Series, until they made it back to the World Series in 1959, which they would lose against 2 LA Dodgers. And believe it or not, after that 1919 World Series, 1959 was their only World Series appearance. Yeah, that was their only World Series appearance. And believe it or not, they lost quite a few playoff games. Well, they lost a lot of games. That is until 2005. The White Sox would make it back to the World Series, as they would go on and sweep the Houston Astros before they went to the American League. They swept the Houston Astros, and their championship drought of 88 years was lifted. Yeah, it's something about Chicago teams that they seem to have a curse, but like I said, I'm gonna just leave it at that. They still got championships, but they got championship droughts. Yeah, don't get me started. But yeah, the Chicago White Sox will go on and win the 2005 World Series, and not only that, the curse of the Black Sox lifted. Yeah, lifted. Another curse of baseball. Now, this is very interesting. The curse of Rocky Calvito. Now, this curse, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, no, and yes, but this curse dated back in 1960, as then the Cleveland Indians would trade Rocky Calvito to the Detroit Tigers for Harvey Kuhn. And not only that, they were stating that they don't know, or if he did, Rocky Calvito put a curse on the Indians. And believe it or not, now that those other teams' championship droughts are over, the Cleveland Guardians now have the longest championship drought. They haven't won a World Series since 1948. If you think about it, Cleveland made it to 3 World Series way after that trade, and they lost all 3 of them. 1995 to the Atlanta Braves, 1997 to the Florida Marlins, and 2016 as they would lose that World Series to the Chicago Cubs, who was also mentioned about championship drought or team that was cursed. And believe it or not, now they haven't made it back to the World Series, and yeah, they're stating that ever since the Rocky Calvito trade, the Guardians or Indians haven't been the same. Which to me, they haven't. They lost 3 World Series. So, yeah, after that trade. Yeah. Moving on. Another curse. Another curse of the MLB. Now, this curse definitely was a crazy curse. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, this curse, the curse of Coogan's Bluff, also known as the curse of Eddie Grant. Now, this curse also goes to the San Francisco Giants. Now, before they relocated to San Francisco in 1957, they were the New York Baseball Giants. Now, they actually won 5 World Series in New York. 1905, 1921, 1922, 1933, and 1954, before 2010. That was the last time that the New York Giants won a World Series before they relocated to San Francisco. Now, this curse is very interesting. So, Giants owner actually wanted the new stadium, didn't get the new stadium, so he will relocate the team to San Francisco. And this curse began in 1958. Giants fans were upset. They were hurt. They're like, wow, you won 5 World Series here and now you're going to leave us? Wow. Believe it or not, the fans actually put a jinx on the Giants. Now, believe it or not, they also would have a player by the name of Eddie Grant, who served in World War I, which he eventually lost his life. At their stadium, the Polo Grounds, fans stormed the field, and they said some of the fans stole the plaque of Eddie Grant, which the Giants paid tribute to when he passed away serving in World War I. Now, believe it or not, 1954 was the last time that the Giants won the World Series. Now, after that, the curse began in 1958. And since moving to San Francisco, the Giants actually lost 3 World Series. 1962 against their former crosstown rivalry, the New York Yankees. 1989 to the Oakland Athletics, and 2002 against the LA Angels. Yeah, for some reason they lost World Series to their rivals. Yeah, or that they played in the same state of either New York or California. Yeah, that's kind of rare. But anyway, in 2006, they would make a new plaque of Eddie Grant, as they would put it in their ballpark in San Francisco. 2010, the curse has finally been lifted, as the San Francisco Giants will go on and win the World Series as they defeated the Texas Rangers. I remember that World Series. And not only that they would win a World Series in 2010, they will go on and win in 2012 against the Detroit Tigers. They swept them, and they would win in 2014 as they defeated the Kansas City Royals in a Game 7. Yeah, so that shows you that the curse of Eddie Grant was real for the Giants. They made a new plaque. They won 3 World Series in San Francisco. They still got 5 in New York, but they won 3 in San Francisco. So the curse of Eddie Grant has been lifted, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this last curse is very, very, very interesting. This curse is the curse of the Milwaukee Brewers reverse World Series. Now, before they were the Milwaukee Brewers, they were the Seattle Pilots. Then they would relocate to Milwaukee and became the Milwaukee Brewers. They were, as I may have mentioned on another episode of MLB Teams That relocated, they had the Baltimore Orioles, whatever how you say their name, and they had a Milwaukee Brewers, but they're not the same team as they are today. Excuse me. Now, they're stating that every team that defeated the Brewers in the playoffs played in a World Series. Which is true. If you think about it, they played in a World Series. This it started back in 1981 when they went in the American League. They lost the ALDS to the New York Yankees, who would go on and play the World Series, but they lost to the LA Dodgers. They would lose the World Series of 1982 to the St. Louis Cardinals. They would lose the NLDS in 2008 against my hometown team, the Philadelphia Phillies, which the Phillies won the World Series that year. They were going to lose the 2011 NLCS to the St. Louis Cardinals, who the Cardinals were going to win the World Series that year. They would lose the 2018 NLCS to the LA Dodgers, as they would lose the World Series to the Boston Red Sox, but they appeared in the World Series. They would lose the NL wild card game to the Washington Nationals in 2019, which the Nationals will go on and win the World Series that year. They lost the 2020 National League wild card game to the LA Dodgers, which the LA Dodgers will go on and win the World Series that year. They will lose the 2021 NLDS to the Atlanta Braves, which the Atlanta Braves appeared in the World Series, and they actually won the World Series that year as they defeated the Houston Astros. And believe it or not, they would lose the 2023 wild card game to the Arizona Diamondbacks, which they appeared in the 2023 World Series, which they lost, of course, to the Texas Rangers. But yeah, for some reason, every team that beats the Milwaukee Brewers advanced to the World Series. That is until in 2024, which that curse was uplifted, but the Brewers were going to lose to the New York Mets, as they would advance to the NLCS, but they lost the NLCS to the LA Dodgers, who were going to win the World Series that year. It was uplifted for 1 year. That is until 2025, when the Brewers played the LA Dodgers in the NLCS, and the Dodgers were going to win back-to-back World Series. They won in 2025. So, yeah and no. I actually believe in this curse because, yeah, every team that beat the Milwaukee Brewers, they would go on and play the World. Well, not every team, but they would play in the World Series. So, I don't know what the Brewers are going to have to do, but they're going to have to figure out something. Every team that beat them will play in the World Series. So, they've made it to the playoffs quite a few times. And not only that, the last World Series that they appeared was in 1982, which they were in the American League. But, yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I never knew that until I look. I'm like, wow, that's true. It was lifted for one season until the curse came back. So yeah, and the Milwaukee Brewers are definitely one of the MLB teams that never won a World Series. So poor Brewers fans. And I also would like to give an honorable mention of baseball curse, the curse of the Colonel. I think Japanese players pushed the Colonel statue into the water, and that Japanese team was cursed. They finally got the statue out of the water, and I think Japan's won the World Series of that. I don't know, it's something like that. And then you have the curse of the Lafu, whatever. I cannot pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Stating that players playing religious of Yom Kippur. It's just an honorable mention. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just leave it at that. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, those were your MLB teams that were cursed. Like I said, some of them were lifted. Some of them took a very long time to get lifted. And not only that, 4 out of the teams actually won World Series. I mean, the Guardians got World Series, but they haven't won since 1948, so they now have the longest championship drought. So, before I go off on this episode, ladies and gentlemen, I will also want to say that I still appreciate all the love and the support. Make sure you tell all your family and friends about the Young Brother Soul podcast show, And make sure you tell them to subscribe, hit that thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that notification button, and make sure y'all tune in for some more of new episodes of the Young Brother of Soul podcast show on YouTube. Young Brother of Soul, I just want to say good night to everybody. Be safe, and make sure you tell all your family and friends. Yeah, I'm going to keep on saying it until you tell all your family and friends. Thank you, and make sure y'all tune in for some more episodes of... I'm not going to say it, but just make sure y'all tune in for some more episodes, which will be coming pretty soon. And I cannot wait to have more guests on the Young Brother of Soul podcast show. Oh, I said it. Oh, man, I said it. No, let me stop. But thank you again. Be safe, and enjoy your night.